It's been over 70 years since the State of Israel was established, but after decades of political negotiations, military conflicts, and thousands of casualties, the parties are still killing each other over who gets to live where. Most recently, 70 Palestinians were removed from their homes in East Jerusalem because their houses are being claimed by Jews. This has led to missiles raining down on Israel and Gaza. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to where it all began. For centuries, the present-day Israel belonged to the Ottoman Empire. However, after World War I, large parts of the empire were divided among the victorious powers. France got Syria and Lebanon, while England got Iraq, Transjordan, and Palestine. In the early 20th century, Palestine was inhabited mostly by Muslims, along with Christian and Jewish minorities. At the same time, a Zionist movement emerged in Europe, claiming that Judaism was both a religion and a nationality. They lobbied for an independent Jewish state, ideally in Palestine. In 1917, the British government expressed its support for establishing a homeland for Jews in Palestine, but with a commitment not to infringe upon the civil and religious rights of the non-Jewish communities in Palestine. The Zionist movement didn't receive a promise of a state, but tensions in the region began to rise. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, Arab nationalism grew, and Jewish immigration, especially after the Holocaust during World War II, led to conflicts between Palestinians and Jewish immigrants over who could stay in the land and the establishment of a Jewish state. The British eventually asked the United Nations to find a solution. In 1947, the UN passed a partition plan for the then Palestine. The map showed a two-state solution, with approximately 40% for Palestinians and just over 50% for Jews. Jerusalem and Bethlehem, containing holy sites for Muslims, Christians, and Jews, were to be under international control. The Zionist movement accepted the partition plan, but Arab leaders rejected it. However, a year later, on May 14, 1948, when the British mandate ended, Jews declared their own state, Israel. The day after, Israel was attacked by 5 Arab countries: Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. Israel emerged victorious in 1949, gaining more land than the UN plan had proposed, and leading to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. A ceasefire line, known as the Green Line, was established during peace negotiations. The Green Line separated Israel from its Arab neighbors. The West Bank was annexed by Transjordan and later named Jordan, and the Gaza Strip came under Egyptian administration. However, the Green Line was not a recognized border, and the Arab states did not recognize Israel. Tensions escalated in the following years, culminating in the Six-Day War in June 1967, during which Israeli forces occupied Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. After the war, Israel declared Jerusalem as its capital and continued to rule over the people they had been in conflict with for years. But Jordan and Egypt are able to reach a peace treaty with Israel. And in this peace treaty, Israel agrees to give Egypt the Sinai Peninsula back. The conflict shifted from being regional to an internal one between Israelis and Palestinians. While Israel had a government, the Palestinians did not. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was established in the 1960s, seeking to represent Palestinians and advocating for a Palestinian state. The PLO aimed to dismantle Israel and establish their own state in all of Palestine, leading to intense conflict with Israel. In the late 1960s, more Israelis began moving to the West Bank and Gaza, where predominantly Palestinians lived. Some moved for religious reasons, some believed it was Israeli land, and others were attracted by cheap housing. These settlers built entire communities, displacing Palestinians. The UN Security Council condemned the settlements in 1979, calling them illegal and a threat to peace in the Middle East. The settlements have been considered violations of international law, but the Israeli government has continued to support them, resulting in an increasing number of Israelis in the West Bank. Critics argue that settlements make a two-state solution increasingly impossible. a solution supported by the US and Denmark, among others, leading to repeated conflicts between Israelis and Palestinians. In 1987, Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank initiated an uprising against Israeli occupation, known as the Intifada. The violence continued for nearly 3 years, with intense battles against Israeli forces. However, in 1993, after the Camp David meetings led by US President Clinton, the PLO and Israel reached a principal agreement. The PLO recognized Israel's right to exist and was acknowledged as the legitimate representative of the Palestinians. The occupied West Bank was divided into 3 zones, with Zone A under full Palestinian self-rule, Zone B under Palestinian governance but Israeli control, and Zone C under complete Israeli control. This was intended to lead to a peace agreement where Israel would withdraw from Palestinian territories, but it never materialized. In 1996, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party came to power, and the settlements expanded further. In Gaza, a group of Palestinians organized themselves in 1987, dissatisfied with what they saw as PLO's leniency towards Israel. They called themselves Hamas and took over the PLO's original fight against Israel, including suicide bombings targeting Israeli civilians. Hamas aimed to disrupt the peace process, and when peace negotiations between the PLO and Israel failed, the Second Intifada erupted in 2000. Israel used significant force, and Hamas responded with attacks on civilians. Both sides have been on the US and EU lists of terrorist organizations. Both Israelis and Palestinians now doubt whether peace is possible. On the Israeli side, this skepticism has led to the construction of a wall along the Green Line. Meanwhile, Israel evacuated its settlements in Gaza and reinforced its border with the territory. Israel has also imposed strict restrictions on imports to Gaza, making it difficult for people to leave and return. The Israeli government sees the wall as protection against terrorists, but it has not prevented ongoing conflicts in the region. Violence against Palestinians by Israeli settlers, often involving disputes over property, has been increasing, and many Palestinians have lost their lives. Despite a brief ceasefire, attacks have resumed, and it's difficult to predict where or when this ongoing conflict will ultimately end. If you want to stay updated on world events, please subscribe to our channel as we create many more videos. Thank you for watching.